GKFX Prime presents the Market Analysis Webinar.
Hello traders, welcome back. Happy New Year. It's 2023 and we have another weekly analysis video. Had a little break over the holiday period. Hope you had a good review of your last year, 2022. See how you did. What mistakes did you make in trading? What can you improve? And what are you going to change this year? What are you going to take forward? And how are you going to change your trading life, your trading habits, your psychology, your adjustments to your strategy? What are you going to do this year? As ever, I've got another set of weekly charts, high potential, high probability trade ideas for this week, which we're going to go through together. So thank you again for joining me. Let's have a look at what we've got for this week. And hope you're now fresh and ready for the markets once again. Okay, let's go through what we've got for this week. It is the beginning of January, remembering that typically at the beginning of the year, beginning of January, the markets can be a little bit slower than usual as people come back from their holidays. So let's see what the market brings. Bear that in mind. And as we go towards the end of January and February, things may be speeding up. The volume may be speeding up. And the volatility in the market. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, right then. Let's begin as ever with the calendar. We've got a few charts for this week. On Monday, we've got a bank holiday. It's a bank holiday for the yen. Tuesday, we've got speech from the Bank of Canada. We've got a speech from the Bank of Japan. And we've got a speech from the Fed on the dollar there. So a few to bear in mind here. Wednesday, we've got CPI on the Aussie dollar. We've got the oil inventory numbers. This will be important for the crude oil setup, which we've got here. We've also got the bond auctions on the dollar, not as important as the other news, but something to bear in mind. Could affect the dollar pairs. On Thursday, we've got the big one for the week, the CPI on the dollar. And lately, of the past few times, the CPI news on the dollar has been volatile. So I'm going to pay attention to that. And then to end the week, Friday, we've got the pound GDP figures there, and lesser importance, the USD consumer sentiment. So yeah, the big one is the Thursday, and the Tuesday we have a few speeches there which could rattle a few things. So let's see what we've got for this week. We've got a little selection as usual. Let's begin with the major. I've got pound here. One thing to note for you before you actually begin, that because it's a new year, we have a new yearly candle printed. Now, if you can get that on your chart, then great. If not, no worries. Look out for the higher time frame. The monthly, it's a new month, so we've got monthly candles as well as the usual weekly and lower time frame. So let's have a look at what we've got with the monthly. We did have a bearish bias here, bullish bias on the pound, bearishness on the dollar. We've got these clear bullish candles here, left a wick to the downside, and now seeing what we did at the beginning of this month, we came down, made this retracement. You can see that on the weekly. And then the NFP news last week, which was the first Friday, did this, left this wick behind and then bounced to the upside. So now I'll be looking for that continuation to the upside. We broke through this level, and now I'm looking at this level as the next area to aim for. Of course, on the way there, we will have this high right here. Looking on the daily, we had this area that we marked. We had no reversal there. The market went lower. And then with the NFP, when it took out this low, that's where the reversal actually happened. So looking for that continuation to the upside. Let's now delete all of this. So I'll be now looking at this to be a swing low, and go down to the 4 hour. We can see that we have had this very, very bullish move, massive move on that NFP day. So now I'd like to get a better price, a cheaper price in this area here, which would correspond with around the 61.8 or 78 fib retracement. Let's see a reversal pattern here. If we get there, if we get the reversal pattern and then a move to the upside, which will create a nice higher probability setup, not breaching this low, and then we'll have a nice risk to reward idea up here to move to these highs. So that's the idea on the pound. You can see we're breaking structures right here to the left side. Just want to see a better price and then get on the move. That may not happen, of course. The market may continue to push higher. If it does so, then I'll look for the next retracement afterwards, higher up, to go to this level. So that's the pound dollar, with the weakness on the dollar with NFP news last week. That's what I'll be looking at. Okay, next let's look at another dollar pair, another major pair, the dollar CAD. So again, looking at the monthly, I can see here that we've got some weakness here after the push higher. Looking at the continuation of the breakdown of the basically a breakdown in the dollar and bearishness in the dollar. You could see last month, previous month, tried to push higher and then ended up neutral. The bullishness did not come back in, which tells me that this is not a retracement. This is an actual move lower. What you could see is we're now breaking through last month's low, and then that hints at continuation to the downside. And now we can see here's that NFP wick left last week and then continuing lower. So the obvious next target would be this one, and then the one after that would be obviously down here. Let's look now at the daily 4 hour to get a clearer picture where we're at. So this is kind of looks like a little bit of the reverse of the pound dollar, doesn't it? Where we had the wick to the upside and then moved down, breaking lower, breaking these structural lows, and then continuing to the downside. So once again, I'm going to look for a better price, a retracement. At the moment, I don't know where to place the fib because we haven't got that swing. So when we do have it, if it's here, we're looking to have a nice retracement, get that better price to a more expensive area, and then some kind of reversal here, price action, and heading lower to the downside. So that will give us a nice risk reward. The first take profit will be here, the second will be here, and not looking to breach this level up here, 1.3655. So that would be my idea on dollar CAD. The next idea here, let's look at pound Aussie. Here's pound Aussie. Let's look again on the monthly. What have we got here? The monthly picture is showing two things here. On the one hand, we've got this massive wick to the downside, which is pushing market higher. On the other hand, the monthly picture is showing lower lows and lower highs, and therefore a weakness. So let's just concern ourselves with what we've got for this week. And what I can see is that we've made this push higher retracement. We came into this level down here. We now created a reversal pattern, reversed, and looking on the weekly, we've got this bearishness on the weekly. So what it looks like now is that we have not had any reversal, so we're now aiming for this low and then possibly the next low right here, and this could be a retracement of this whole move. With that, the current bias would be to the downside for me. So here we are. Here's that low. There it is. And now we've got lower lows and lower highs. So I'll be looking for that continuation to the downside, unless we have a break of this high here, in which case this whole idea would be invalid. And then what I actually want is the upside, because then we'll be holding this low. So for now, I'm looking at weakness. What does weakness mean? Well, I'd like a nice strong close below this level, which would hint at more weakness. And after that, a pullback to get a better price, and then continuing to the downside. So that's the idea so far. If we get that, if that happens, continuing on this trend. But if this trend is broken and this high is broken, then that would not be the case anymore, because, well, then the market would be breaking a structure and then the trend would not be there anymore. So that's where we're at with the pound Aussie. A little bit trickier one, this one to look at. I would admit that this is not really my favorite setup for this week because of that, because we are so close to this low. Would be nice to be much higher up here, but still weakness. We could see these daily candles, there's no real strength in them. Weekly candles, no strength, it's just weakness. So continuation on that bearishness is what I'm looking at on the pound Aussie. Once again, remembering the calendar, the news, we've got pound news, we've got dollar news, and we've also got both CAD news back from Bank of Canada and oil. So oil could affect the CAD too, remember that. Let's move on to Aussie CAD. So what have we got on Aussie CAD? If we zoom out here, we can see that on the monthly we have this big bullish move left this week to the downside. So I'll be looking at this bullishness. I'll be looking at this being the retracement of the bullishness. And now that we've had the retracement, we've had the reversal to the upside. We broke the structural high over here, closed higher, and we have bullishness now. So we are now bullish on Aussie CAD. Looking at the weekly, you can see we've created this swing, and now we are bullish, continuing that bullishness. And what it looks like is we're going to be reaching for this high up here, which is what I am looking at. Now, let's just shift the chart a little bit. This is what I'm looking at, this swing, continuation on that bullishness to possibly reach this level. So what are we going to look at now? Well, you can see last week the candle did close slightly, ever so slightly bullish. So there is bullishness, more bullishness than bearishness, that's for sure. So I'll be looking for that continuation and continuing to move higher. Here's that candle on Friday, bullish candle, created this little swing. You can see these higher highs. If you look on the 4 hour, maybe a bit clearer. Yep, higher highs, higher lows. This level holding, we didn't have this breakdown of this structure. So the higher prices is what I'm looking for. Here's the 4 hour. Right, here's the 1 hour. It's a little bit clearer here. You can see this big move push up on NFP. I'm looking at this possible level as the area that I'll be interested going higher from. Looking back on the 4 hour, you can see if we make this retracement, that will be a nice risk to reward idea to go to this level. That'll be from here to there. That's a nice almost 300 pips. So really good move there. If that doesn't happen, the other possibility is once we get a nice clean break of this level, then once we go higher, get a pullback and then continue from there. All right. Now, where's the breakdown going to be? The breakdown is going to be this low. And if it breaks this low, then this whole structure would be invalidated. You can even draw a trend line if you like, but that's not so important in this case. The thought behind this is the same. If we have a breakdown of this structural low, then it will not likely go higher because we are now breaching structures and breaching the bias. So that's the idea on Aussie CAD. Okay, next one. What should we look at next? Let's go with the S&P. S&P has been one we've been looking at lately a lot, the indices and the NASDAQ, NAS 100 as well. And here we are continuing on the previous bias, which was to the downside. We can see that we had this spike up here. Let's just start with a monthly, where we're a proper start actually. We were looking for this high to hold. We can see that we have lower lows and lower highs on the monthly, and last month's candle closed bearish. So this bearishness is coming back into the market. Looking at the weekly, we've had this big wick to the upside, a massive engulfing candle, engulfing 1, 2, 3, 4 candles. So we are very much bearish, very much weak. So here's that weakness, and here's that retracement of this weakness, and we can look at this area now. If you want to draw a fib from the low, from the high to the low, here's that 50 level. So definitely at this zone and above is the expensive area to look for. So that will be a nice area to look out for. Let's look at the 4 hour. So here we are. Little push higher, some kind of reversal continuing to the downside. First level would be down here. Second level would be down here in terms of the profit targets. So we don't reach there. We are looking to have that push. We are with the current plan. This is a very nice idea, high probability. We've got clear setup here, clear idea of where the market is going. We just need to wait for it to come together, to really, for the pieces to come in and see how it plays out, and wait patiently for it to actually play out. And once it does, then we'll jump in, and then this is going to be a nice long-term trade to the downside. Okay, you can see that clearly on the daily. We had this range, so we're kind of in a retracement phase. You can see the speed of this move down, and you can see the lackluster, slow, laborious move to the upside, struggle, right? Struggle. So that indicates that this is a retracement, that this is a phase of the market taking profits and waiting for that reversal to continue to the downside. Okay, right, that's the S&P there. Let's move on to oil. Now, oil, we've got Bank of Canada news, we've got oil inventories as usual every week. Let's see where the market moves from there. We're now at a key point in oil because we have a much higher time frame area to bear in mind. So let's look at that higher time frame area. Let's look on the monthly. If you just ignore all the markings for a moment, just look at the candles. You can see this push higher, this higher high, this low, and we're now at a deep retracement phase. So now the question is, are we going to hold this retracement phase, this low? You can see these wicks, which indicate that we are slowing down and the market may be about to reverse. I did draw this trend here, which it now looks like we have broken through. The idea previously was this breach of the high and then retracement and go higher, which failed, and we now went lower. So let's now delete this. So this idea failed previously, but we left a wick to the downside, and let's just remove that, left a wick to the downside, and we're still holding this low. So now the question becomes, if we hold this low, and this is still the retracement, this is a low, then we should move higher. That's not yet clear because we had this very bearish momentum to the downside. So two scenarios to look out for. First scenario is if we break below this low once again, then the bias will be bearish. And if we break below the low, I'll be looking to head lower to this low right here, and then we'll see possibly lower still. We'll see where it goes from there. Now, if we break above this level up here, that will be confirmation of the upside. Then I'll be looking for a cheaper price, and then continuing to the upside to the next obvious level, which is up here, and then the next take profit target will be up there. So at the moment, favoring the buy side, because that is where the risk reward is. At the moment, that's where the probabilities are. Bearish dollar, which means usually speaking, higher prices on commodities, higher prices on oil. So that is the idea here. And the downside looks a little bit less favorable because we have lower probabilities. We have this zone, let me just mark it out so that it's actually clearer. If you look on the monthly, we have this whole area down here. If you want to draw a fib, just to make it a bit more obvious, you can see we are in this 78 area right here, and then rejecting off it, creating these wicks. So this candle, which is this month, obviously hasn't finished yet. If it pushes higher, that will be a very good sign. At the moment, not yet clear. So this may require a bit more patience. Again, not my favorite setup for this week. Would really want to see more price action and a nice push to the upside before confirming where oil is actually going, crude oil. And this week's news may sway the direction, may actually create that push and momentum. At the moment, you could see, obviously, with the weekly candles, we have this range where it's kind of stuck in the middle. It's not so clear. The trend is no longer very clear. So this is where you want to be patient and wait and see what happens before having probabilities on your side. The market has not actually revealed itself just yet. So let's wait for that. Okay, so that's crude oil for you. And finally, as always, we end with Bitcoin. All right, let's look on the monthly. Let's begin on the monthly. What we can see is last month we closed slightly bearish and we've slowed down the momentum, but we're still very much bearish. I was looking at these levels down here for the market to reach, and you can see we had this very lackluster range, really unclear where we're going. The targets were the lows. For me, that did not happen. Did look at this area right here, this zone, which we didn't reach. Let me just delete these lines. You can see we were looking to head lower. The market didn't produce any opportunity to do that. I was looking at this level, which we didn't reach into. But what do we have now? After this break of trend line, we did reach into this level. We are now here. So after all that waiting, a few weeks of waiting, we have now reached this area, this level. So if I draw a fib, you can see here's the 50, here's the 61.8. So actually, this will be the much better price to pay attention to. Now, the tricky part here, just like with oil, is we are in this range and it's not quite clear where we are going. On the monthly, we're still bearish, so the more favorable idea would be the downside. That's where the bias is. And now we're coming up to this zone of interest where I'd like to pay attention to see what happens. So where do we go from here? Two things. If we have a nice reversal on this zone, we also have this gap right here to fill the gap and break down lower. Want to see a nice reversal, we'll see a nice push to the downside, break of the structural low, and then give us a better price, a more expensive price, to come to the downside and then come to this previous low down here. That would be more favorable. If you want, you could draw this bigger trend line, which would be more valid and more in line with where we're at the moment, actually. So This is the idea. However, we are a little bit far away from there. However, you never know. Bitcoin moves very fast, very volatile. So anything can happen in the market. This would be the confirmation to the downside. What would be the confirmation to the upside? Looking at the higher time frame, well, I'd want to see it really create a much higher move, push to the upside, really bullish momentum candles, and that would invalidate the downside idea, and then we'll be looking to go higher into, just mark this, into this price level and possibly higher into the next high. So that is the scenario here. Because of this range, you can see this range in the market. We're here stuck in this kind of range. If I mark it out, just a bit more obvious, in this range. So we could possibly also be bouncing off this range. So we could be going up and down for a while here. We could be stuck in this range before we get a sense of direction of where the market wants to go. And because of that, this is really not a favorable setup. This may be a kind of in and out type of setup if we do get it, because we may bounce to the low of this range and then back to the high before we actually get a breakout and a break in the direction that the market wants to go in. You can see that it's very high time frame range and unclear. If anything, I would favor the downside, and that's the idea. So really looking at this level up here, this zone, to see what happens. Let's pay attention. Let's see where the market goes first. Let's reveal its hand. It's still early days before making a decision. Okay, all right. So that concludes this week's setups and ideas, high probabilities. Do pick your setups carefully. Remember to manage your risk and line up with the news. Bear in mind the news, and if you're not sure, then allow the market to play out and the news to play out before you look to enter the setup. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me this week. My name is Dima, as ever. Good luck in your trading week. Hope this helps, and I will see you again next week for more trader setups as the market develops and we get further into January, where we begin to go with the flow and we have a little bit more, even more clarity, even more setups to look at, and the probabilities come into our favor because we have the market getting back into its stride for 2023. Right. Good luck in your trading week, guys, and I'll see you next week. All right, bye for now.